Welcome to RAADcast, where science and soul converge in shaping the future of human potential. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Grill-Peterson, and together we're stepping beyond limits to explore super longevity. Produced by the Coalition for Radical Life Extension, the visionaries behind RAADfest, RAADcast is more than a podcast. It's a movement for the bold, the curious, and those who refuse to settle for anything less than the extraordinary. Together, we'll uncover the cutting-edge science, unknown strategies, and transformative practices, paving the way for a future of limitless potential. If you're ready to think bigger, dream bolder, and live longer, you're in the right place. This is RAADcast. Now let's get ready to explore the future of life itself. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's show. We have the privilege of speaking with a true pioneer in biotechnology and gene therapy, Liz Parrish. She's the CEO of BioViva and has been at the forefront of reimagining what is possible in the fight against aging, not just as a researcher, but as a trailblazer who became patient zero back in 2015, where she went and undergone experimental gene therapy to push the boundaries of human health and longevity. She's tackling the hallmarks of aging head on, from telomere lengthening to muscle regeneration, and advocating for a future where gene therapy isn't just a luxury for the few, but an accessible solution for everyone. Today, we're going to delve deep into Liz's journey. We're going to look at the progress she's made since her initial treatments and the far-reaching implications of gene therapy on our quest for radical life extension. Most importantly, we're going to explore her vision for a world where lifespan is extended, health span is optimized, and the very nature of being human is redefined. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And I just want to do a shout out to you because you did that in one take. You're the most articulate intro that I have ever had. So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, I received that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I
You
said I
have
got
a you
my
have a
notes a
face
couple
for
of
video and a
times.
voice for radio. Perfect.
I love it. Yeah, I'm just like, okay, I've got to make sure I don't fumble. So, okay, beautiful. Well, it's an honor, it's a pleasure. I've wanted to have this conversation with you. I have fangirled over you for so long, for so many reasons, because you really are everything I've just said. You are such a true pioneer and a visionary. And so, what's beautiful about this format here at RAADcast is we have experts and enthusiasts alike, and people that are just brand new to this conversation about what could become possible. And so I want to dive right in to your work because you've been a bold advocate for gene therapy, and the fact that, and I know you've told the story many times, I'm going to try to twist it in a way that we can give a fresh perspective, but you were one of the first people to undergo experimental treatments on yourself. So kind of looking back at taking that step, how do you feel that your decision to become patient zero has actually influenced not only yourself and your health, but really the field of longevity and gene therapy overall?
Well, thank you for asking that. So, just in case somebody doesn't know our history, so in 2015 we started the company, and we did it by doing the first experiment in biological aging with gene therapy. And I took two gene therapies. One was telomerase reverse transcriptase that lengthens the caps at the ends of the chromosomes that shorten as we age and are associated with lifespan of humans and 23 other species. And then the second gene therapy was follistatin. It was a gene that had been through safety and efficacy for Becker's and muscular dystrophy, but its potential for an aging population was substantial. Of course, even prefacing that with every gene that our company chooses can be repurposed for a childhood disease as well, which was how I got started. But so anyway, we did this experimental gene therapy, and I think that we knew that we were definitely breaking new ground. It was not classy. It was not like a beautiful movie or anything like that. It was pretty rough and raucous, and we were trying to find a location and trying to get the gene therapy manufactured, and we actually didn't know what would happen. But as we suspected by doing all the literature review, I became healthier. And that was fantastic. But in the meantime, I think we did everyone a service by breaking almost everything in the biotech industry. So after we did the gene therapy, we kind of thought, well, people will be very excited about this data. You know, self-experimentation is a historical premise for getting medicine moved more quickly. But actually, we found a lot of really unsatisfied characters out there of whom we probably broke their business model. We probably broke how healthcare was done to begin with. And we had some disgruntled scientists and investors out there, and especially companies who had raised an enormous amount of investment, but probably didn't have a drug that you could take with great benefits.
Yeah, it's interesting just in some of the conversations we've already been having here on the show. There is this fascinating bridge between what's really happening in the research space versus what's happening in the clinical space. And I love that from a research side, and I really respect you because you did what hasn't been done. Like you did a very bold move. And overall, healthcare as an entirety is very conservative in how it's moving. And so you did something radical, you did something bold, you did something that did push the envelope to say, hey, we're going there. Who's coming with us? And yet, because I hold such a huge vision of what is possible for just human potential, and I look at what's going on and I see our practitioners in the field that the idea there's still such a conservative, fearful, hesitant approach. And I understand it's this mix of best practices and research paired with, we have to be safety and standards and compliance because everybody could be liable. So it's a very weird space to say, how can we do the bold thing? How can we actually take the needle moving activities and implement it? So for you, like you did the bold thing. What did it take within you to actually say, doesn't matter, I'm doing it. I don't know what's going to happen. And it's an interesting fallout that you said, like you kind of ruffled a lot of feathers. Talk to us about how you came to that choice point within yourself. And are you happy all these years later with kind of the ripple effect that you've seen from it?
Yeah, so from 2011 to 2013, I volunteered my time for the advocacy of the use of stem cells in regenerative medicine. So I had sort of a strong basis of what was out there. During that period of time, I fell in love with genetics, and it started with the stem cell. What makes the stem cell so potent in repairing the body when it has the same genes as every other cell in the body? And so my sort of rabbit hole went into a myriad of spaces of how genes could potentially help us live longer and healthier. But in 2013, my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and hence why we choose every gene very carefully, both for a childhood disease and for aging-associated disease, so we can actually hit both sides of the age gamut. So when I was in the hospital, they just basically, every time I asked about genetics or biobanking pancreas or stem cells, they looked at me like I was crazy and they said, that's experimental medicine. We don't use that in children, which actually sounds very logical until you look at the research. The research has been around in some cases for decades. Positive outcomes, very few negative outcomes. With the gene therapies that I used in my first experiment, and then since then I've done other gene therapies as well with new genes, but those genes themselves had already been through a huge meta-analysis. They had lengthened the life of model organisms in several species. So the one had been in clinical trials. It was safe and effective. Why not use it in an aging population and then perfect it for childhood muscular diseases? it wasn't fitting in my head that these new drugs would come out with all these side effects. And yet the medicine that doesn't have side effects, gene and cell therapy, was not being allowed to be used, and that doctors and nurses had such a negative knee-jerk reaction to it. So after his diagnosis, I started traveling around the world looking for cures for kids. It just was by happenstance that I ran into a conference about aging. I met George Church, the professor of genetics at Harvard, and I asked him to join the company. um, since then, I'm really glad that we did what we did. We went head down. We spent 2 years from my son's diagnosis researching what gene therapies would be the most appropriate to have the best beneficial outcome to the whole population and childhood disease. And we chose those two that I started with, Chart and Follistatin. And what was the effect? I mean, the ripple effect has been amazing. The FDA has approved more gene therapies than ever. I think they've actually approved more gene therapies than cell therapies at this point. That, we're pushing the regulatory bodies to really go forward. I went to school whilst running this company and got my MBA in obviously in business, but then I did my thesis in regulations, and now I work with countries around the world to help streamline pre-regulatory routes so patients can get access. And, our voice, which once sort of shattered the minds of people, like, how dare you just go use an experimental drug? But remember, like, at the point of experiment, these weren't very experimental. They had been in so many studies. They
Yeah.
had proven over and over again that they worked. The one gene therapy just had never been in a human. And so what pushed me to do it was, living with my son who has a disease every single day.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that we need to move fast. We need to create medicine so that people have more healthy time. And
Mhm.
when we cure a childhood disease, we don't want them to just live from 21 to 35 and then start getting aging associated diseases. We need people to live healthy, well, and longer. And that will create the best outcome. But now we see companies trying to go to market faster. We see people changing how they're making their drugs. And I mean, as I say today, in this climate, if you are not working on a drug that you would want to take, because everything is moving towards actual health care instead of sick care. We used to just
Right.
treat symptoms. You have cancer, we treat the symptom. You have heart disease, we try to lower your LDL. It's like we don't actually cure it. Now we're working towards curative medicine. If you're not working in a drug company that makes drugs that you actually want to take before you get sick, then you're in the wrong business.
Mm.
And basically, that was the message. And if you're a company that's raised hundreds of millions of dollars but never gotten a drug approved, there's probably something wrong there. We
Mm.
need to be more efficient with money, our time, and our energy. And I think that, regenerative medicine is the space for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting advances coming, and we're going to keep diving into that. And I want to take just a moment and bring us into a practical, everyday approach. So I appreciate the dive into genetics. And so one of the things with the first treatment you did at impacting length of telomere, obviously, we know there's a lot that shows lifestyle actions. So if we think through the epigenetic lens of what actions, how's our environment and the way that we're living and engaging within it, how's that influencing and informing that genetic code and that potential to express or to repress? So I'm curious, how do you see the data stacking up? What role do you really advocate lifestyle? And how far can that get us in modulating genetic expression by way of epigenetic signaling? How far can we get with lifestyle? And does the gene therapy then take us further? Is it the same? Is it totally different categories? How would you help us, just the layperson out there, kind of going, okay, I'm really fascinated by this. It's not readily available yet. It is it's not very cost effective yet. So where do I begin with understanding that if I can move the needle at that genetic level, I could have a healthier, longer life and potentially mitigate my risk of other possible diseases that are associated with aging.
Okay, so that's a lot. Let me just go back and unpack it from the very beginning. So I wrote a foreword of a book called Expressive Origins, and it's all about epigenetics. So if you want to go look that up, you can. That's from
The longevity revolution is about more than just searching online for a few hacks, or any one of us moving our biomarkers in the right direction. It's about coming together to learn, share, to connect, and create the unlimited future we want. That's why you need to be at RAADfest 2025 in Las Vegas from July 10th to the 13th. RAADfest, the revolution against aging and death, is proud to be partnering for the first time with Dr. Aubrey de Grey and Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation to form the single most comprehensive, advanced, informative, and inspiring event on age reversal for a general audience. Meet the people you want to make forever with. RAADfest 2025. Take advantage of lower advanced pricing now at radfest.com.
chapters themselves are actually written by doctors and practitioners and specialists in epigenetics. And so epigenetics is a fascinating thing. And actually, we know now that we are born with a lot of epigenetic expression from our parents and maybe our grandparents and maybe our great-grandparents. And so this is all very interesting for sure. But I don't know how to say this. It's the law of diminishing returns. So
Sure.
you can live very healthy. You could have where everything would start perfect is in utero, or actually with your parents or your grandparents' lifestyles. Okay, because if you're just going to count on what you were born with, then we know how long you'll live. But we don't know how healthy you'll live. So you might be born with some precursors of epigenetics to have anxiety or depression or various other things that might be genetic or epigenetic. And so those will be things to overcome. You might have been born in a family that was very stressful when you were young, and that will actually pre-age you as well. Or you might have been born a minority, and we know that that will pre-age you as well. Then you get control of your life, let's hope sooner than later, and you live as healthy as possible. And so for your middle years, if you don't want to intervene, this is where you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck towards your later years, is living healthy. Don't drink alcohol. Don't smoke. Try to get some good sleep, but mostly de-stress yourself, because stress itself will destroy you even if you do everything else correctly. Probably that's why some people choose to drink, because
Yeah.
I would not suggest that. I would not medicate stress. I would
Yes.
I would meditate stress. Don't medicate it, meditate it.
I
Okay.
like that.
And then you'll get through it. So you can obviously there create a better middle of your life. And here's, for instance, now we can't say exactly what my dad was born with in predisposition, but his dad died in his 50s. So my dad took his health very seriously, and when it was not fashionable, started running in denim jeans. I'm not kidding. And he started running a few miles in denim, his Wranglers.
That's
My dad,
fantastic.
and then he started running marathons, and he started, taking some of these things, nutritional supplements that, we had never heard of before at the time, little garlic pills and sal palmetto and vitamin C, just little, not tons of it,
Yep.
just a little bit of it. And he lived to 82. I'm happy, or 81 actually. I'm happy to say we extended the last 2 years of his life with gene therapy, because he did come down with Parkinson's. But anyway, that goes to show you, if he had the predisposition of his father, which he might not have, because all of his siblings who didn't do the same also lived decent years. One died young. That could show you that you could make a difference, right? But if you want to actually extend the health span and the lifespan beyond your predispositions, and your best case predispositions, because that's all you're going to get with lifestyle, then you need to intervene. And that's where the gene therapies come in, the cell therapies, and some of these new substances that are looking to reprogram the body, maybe bioelectrically, that we're going to start seeing enter, that are going to be a game changer. So I'm working on two companies that have HDACs for chemical reprogramming. They believe that they are resetting the epigenetic age of the cell. Then we have the gene therapies that come in, and they turn up function, gene function that you lose over time, or gene function that you didn't have, that's associated with species that live much healthier and longer than we do within their time frame. And then new ones that are associated with different protection and things like that. So, and then the cell therapies, I'm working with a company that is taking your own cells, your own stem cells, sorry. They are epigenetically reprogramming them, so they are youthful. They're your cells, but youthful. That means they can implant. So if you take cells from somewhere else, they can maybe drive up some regeneration, but they can't implant. These ones will be your cells, they can implant, and then we're going to enhance them with gene therapies. So this will be for neurocognitive, muscle, organ failure, and things like that. So it's getting really exciting, but this is the space that you need to be in if you want to defy the odds.
This truly is the future of medicine and health and well-being. And so when I was able to sit down recently with Aubrey de Grey, as he's been an advocate and telling us of a future where longevity escape velocity is a reality, for so long, it's like, well, we're 50% of the way there. And he's like, Melissa, we're 10, 12 years out. And so I'm really intrigued, Liz, with everything that you just said. Sounds so exciting, so fascinating. So where would you say that gene therapy, cell therapies are really kind of positioned on this timeline in as a cornerstone, if you will, in helping us to achieve this longevity escape velocity? Like, is it 10, 12 years? Where do you see what's coming as being an accessible reality, to actually get us there with this longevity escape velocity concept?
Well, I mean, longevity escape velocity is just basically hitting the ground to where we are moving so quickly that you start taking the first therapies, and then you get to the therapies that help you ultimately, I suppose in our company's case, create homeostasis. Yeah. You essentially regenerate faster than you degenerate, which is kind of what's aging is, a cellular degeneration over time. So, I mean, I don't want to get befuddled in other people's I don't know, definitions of things.
Sure.
But I would say, with the gene therapies, I would say we're already those people who are participating in those, and there are hundreds of people now that go to locations outside the US to take these gene therapies. I think that they're already on the track for it. I think that, the gene therapies themselves could probably slow aging at least by several years. And then eventually we'll reverse aging with, whatever the protocol is that will hit all the hallmarks of aging. We can hit a lot of them with gene therapy, not all of them. So, I would say that a lot of people are on that track, but when does that happen for everyone? Well, that is a good question. And people really, if you just heard what I said, you should be a little enraged. You should realize that people with scientific advisors, people with high intelligence and a lot of money in their bank are able to access things that everyone else can't.
Correct.
And we need to make affordable medicine, and we need the regulatory system to allow these technologies in so the most sick people, the most terminal people can get access. And then we can create the safety profile that the general population needs and wants, and therefore also an affordable therapy. And that's a completely different story. So if you go out in the wild and you have the wherewithal, you could find these type of technologies that already would help you probably, not guaranteed, but probably live healthier longer. I'm saying not guaranteed because biology is tricky and I'm not a medical doctor. That's not my job. But if you're sitting and waiting, then I would say you need to do something. And that's why the Coalition of Radical Life Extension is going to be holding a march on Washington, D.C. in 2026, in which people get together and demand access. And I'll tell you, if this sounds a little crazy to new listeners, this is not. This is how AIDS patients got access. There is technology. There is a lot of regenerative medicine out there. I was just sent an article yesterday that we can regenerate hearts that have low blood fraction. So basically, they're pumping small amounts of blood. They need to pump larger amounts of blood. There's one gene that when they put it in pigs, they're able to have full let's say pumping of the heart. So you understand what I'm talking about. This is critical. Let's see, the liver regeneration. Liver regeneration has already been through phase 2 clinical trials. I've got a company trying to raise for phase 3. That means it's safe and effective. And with a tiny dose of gene therapy, it's regenerating the liver. As far as type 1 diabetes, there is a known treatment with a patient's own cells. You can reprogram the patient's own cells, put them in the liver or the muscles, and the patient can make their own insulin. We do not need to be dependent on these diseases anymore. We can lengthen telomeres, which should give you a healthier and longer lifespan. We can increase muscle mass. Critical. 7% of the population dies from frailty-related injuries. We can make them stronger, especially when we put their own stem cells in and inject the gene therapy, because then their own stem cells can help to create those muscle fibers that they critically need. Clotho, I've done the gene therapy Clotho. I did it intranasally, and I've done it injected into my body. It is associated with better cognitive outcome. We published a paper in like 2020 that showed in 5 patients, 4 out of 5 with actually advanced dementia, suspected Alzheimer's, had cognitive benefits, lasted for 2 years, not too expensive of a therapy. Insurance companies could be covering this. People could be staying home, knowing who their loved ones are for longer until we find a cure. Those are life-extending medicines. Those are critical. And there's now 12 approved gene therapies for monogenic disease. Those are approved all the way through the FDA, but they're for very rare diseases, so very few people benefit. So we know it works. It's proven. It's curative medicine. We need to move much more quickly. So you need to get out and demand access to these technologies. It's not flim-flammy. It's not something that's maybe somewhere out there in the future and we're still working on it. It's done. Go demand access. Stop letting your loved ones die. Stop losing your parents, your grandparents, and your kids.
What I love, thank you so much for your passion and for the call to advocacy. That's so needed. And I think what you just succinctly shared with us all is that we're sitting at an important time where we now realize the way that we've done things, we no longer need to do things. It is an outdated model, the way our current healthcare system is set up. It is a disease management model. And we live in a time where we have proven therapies that can be corrective and curative in nature. And so let us not sit by and continue to just accept what has been, but to really go out and begin to demand more of what is here now. And so, Liz, what you also just helped to highlight is this is not a conversation just about for the extremely wealthy that want to extend their life. Of course, that's great. I want our listeners to realize why longevity is such an important conversation. It really is the vehicle through which we have another way to look at how the body is either breaking down or building up. So longevity as a conversation allows us to realize that the faster the rate and pace of biological aging, that correlates directly with a greater likelihood of chronic disease breakdown leading to greater amounts of all-cause mortality, meaning correlation. And we find oftentimes a lot of causation as well. So longevity is something we want to care about as a way to say, if I slow down aging, I can slow down my rate and risk of disease. But the same things we're using for aging, they're also corrective and curative in nature against disease. So, that all said, Liz, you made such an important point. Where are we in democratizing these therapies and technologies? Like, how close? If you had to look in your magic ball and wave that wand, where do you feel we realistically are in making that more accessible to the masses?
Well, interestingly, we're making headway. So BioViva can't treat patients because we're a US company. We don't have any licenses to do a clinical trial. We've tried, and they just keep sending us back to do animal studies, which we have human data and we have animal data. So I'm not sure. And Biden signed into law in 2022 that we don't need animals.
Are you ready to redefine aging and unlock your full potential as a longevity leader? At the Human Longevity Institute, our world-class certification programs train doctors, coaches, and wellness professionals how to deliver cutting-edge integrative longevity health solutions so people can live better today for longer, healthier, and more vibrant tomorrows. If you're ready to join the longevity revolution, visit humanlongevityinstitute.com to enroll and become a practitioner today.
Studies anymore, so I'm not sure where they're coming from there, but we've realized that our best interest is to license the technology. So we license the technology, and these groups work where they can legally in the world for consensual use, investigator-initiated clinical studies, or under the legal framework of where they're actually working, and that's fantastic. And already they have made the therapies more affordable. Let's say they're still unaffordable for most people, but they're more affordable. So when we look at a whole body treatment of gene therapy in the United States, we're looking at a minimum of $2 million. For that treatment. And that's for a child. If your child is born with spinal muscular atrophy, you need $2 to $5 million or the child dies. And that's pretty criminal because offshore in a human adult, some of these companies are doing these therapies for as low as 250 to 350,000. And that's within the realm that an insurance company would cover if an insurance company would actually look at these therapies and start covering them. So then when you think about that, so that's a very small audience still. If you think about 1,000 people coming, you're talking about the therapies being $50,000. We can actually create a model. And I think actually the US healthcare system has done a very, very good job of trying to prove that gene therapies are too expensive, but they're not. They're expensive. No doubt they're expensive, but they're not that expensive. And we live in the land of greed. The truth is, if you help a lot of people, if you made $1, you'd make $8 billion if you help the whole world. So, we need to get away from this mindset that we need to make a lot of money each time. We need to make a difference. And then if you're making a difference, then you make money. That's how a company should work. You make money on a value proposition, not on the back of sick people.
Yes. It makes me think about, penny wise, dollar foolish as a phrase, because if we really look at what we pay right now just in managing sick care and how that extrapolates out year over year and additional diagnoses and additional medications and comorbidities and everything that goes into one single patient that's just being managed versus if we were to come in at the beginning in a very proactive and corrective way and be able to use these therapies that are, again, in your verbiage, they're curative in nature. And so now all of a sudden it might be a higher price tag up front, but you don't have all the back end costs. And instead you have gain because now you have a healthy individual that's able to go out and continue to show up and contribute to society, to life, putting money back into the economy versus growing and growing and growing costs long term. So I think to your point, there's an interesting perspective that we get to switch and look at it in a more proactive and intelligent way. And so I want to hypothesize. We're going to talk a little philosophical for a moment if you're
Real
willing.
quick, there's a
Yeah.
beautiful paper out by David Sinclair. It's a peer-reviewed paper. It's like the cost of aging. It's
Yes.
US centric. I hate putting dollars and cents on people's lives because we know that it's bigger than that. It's like terror management, how our loved ones are dying with dementia, cancer, and dying at the table of a heart attack. Every 33 seconds we're on this podcast, somebody's dying of a catastrophic heart attack. And that is it's very scary. And in the long-term care, it takes away from people's lives, their livelihood, and it starts to dull down, your essence, because I mean, watching a loved one die is an incredibly terrible thing. But David Sinclair did a paper on the cost of aging, and the US alone could save $38 trillion a year by, listen to this, slowing aging by 1 year. We could do that. We can already do that. You want to
Yeah.
save something?
Yeah, it's my favorite. I talk about it all the time. And to give perspective to what Liz is saying, not only can we save $38 trillion right now, we spend on average 3.8 trillion every year, which is 19% of our gross national product of our debt. Like 20% of what we're paying every year is going to manage sick care. And there's a lot of people out there saying if we keep doing it the way we're doing it, we could, and people are living longer but not better. We're living at a greater state of breakdown, dysfunction, and disease, which comes at a cost. This could really cripple our economic, vitality as a country. And what could that then do globally? So think about it. 3.8 trillion is our cost every year to manage sickness. If we can extend health span by 1 year, we save 38 trillion, not 3.8 trillion, 38 trillion. It's a massive game changer. And to me, like that's the real story. And that's something we get to empower ourselves with versus, to your point, Liz, living in a fear mongering kind of culture or idea like, oh, not enough, not enough. No, there's so much. There's so much. And we need more voices like yours to really to inspire advocacy for us to, I call it, flip the coin to it's the same coin, just to the other side. So what if there's a benefit versus a cost? And there's quite a benefit indeed. So as we realize that there can be benefit, there can be massive gain. We are living in a time where we can correct, we can cure, we can extend health span and lifespan. What all of a sudden happens when we are helping people live healthier, longer lives through gene therapies and cell therapies and reprogramming? What type of, are we even ready for it? What could happen? And this is again hypothesizing, just curious of your takes. I know you've thought about it. I'm sure you've had many conversations around this because this is what you do every day. You're getting up and going out there to extend lifespan and health span. So what happens when we actually do it? Is there a problem with that? Living longer, what it could do to society?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that if we went back 400 years and we told people how long they were about to live as a species, not those people, they would probably freak out and they'd say, we don't need that amount of time because, we're happy with, building a fire every night and barely surviving and 4 of our 5 children dying of illness and dying of infections in our teeth and in our relatively short lifespan. And so, to ask that question is kind of to like almost people don't really know how to put that in their head. But I guarantee you, when people are living longer, healthier, they'll just fall into that time. They'll
Yeah.
just, I mean, I think what's really important is, I often ask people, what's the most important currency in the world? So is it the Swiss franc? Is it the euro? Is it the British pound? It's actually time.
Mhm.
And so, time gives us the ability to do a lot of things. But once we hit this, I mean, I believe as society, we're building something. I believe that a meme has run through us for a very, very long time. We started writing about this a long time ago, thousands of years ago. We started writing stories. Our science fiction writers started writing about technology that we created. I believe that we're building something. And the sad thing is that most countries are not educating all of their people, because we could be building it more quickly. We don't have to be afraid of science and technology. And what happens when we break this, and AI is coming in along with us? I would say we're easily running in parallel. A lot of people think it's advanced, but if they knew what was happening in medicine, they would not think that. We need to educate our people. We are building something incredibly beautiful. My job is to keep biological relevance whilst AI is developed. And how whatever this turns into is already in a way almost clandestine. We are building towards the future. And we need people to learn about the technology and see it for what it is, and actually help to build it, and put their stake into that. And by not educating most people in the United States, by making education, the cost of education so high, we have lost 1 million, at least, geniuses that could have helped us solve this. Globally, probably 1 billion. And we are working towards a better future. And again, we need to change the way that we do most things to actually get to the endpoint that we want to be at. But there are many of us here that obviously are, working for the betterment of people and making this come to be. And I really am intrigued and excited, and I can't wait to see what comes next after we've achieved this. Number one, people are going to live better, longer, and healthier. People who maybe lived 60, 70 years not doing much may then go to college for the first time, because we will realize the value of an education. They may start doing things, a job, or have an idea because of the time that they set doing something else to know how to solve a problem or what needs to be solved next. You're going to see like pieces of the puzzle start to come in. And I really hope that more people get involved in that. And, I don't believe in a tiered system. I think that a person can come from any background and make a huge change in the world. And so those changes will be fit in like puzzle pieces. And what we're building as humans will eventually be shown to us. And then, of course, we'll build on top of that. And so I don't know. I just really... I'm very optimistic, and I'm very excited. But as well, as much as I am excited, I'm also concerned, because there have historically been bad players in the world who might use certain technology against humankind or AI. But AI needs to know that we are the solution. We are a very special species. All species are. I'm a vegetarian. I love all animals. This is a very special planet. We need to take care of it with all of this technology. And I think that it's just going to be one page after another is just going to be turned, and we're going to be amazed. I'm not in the gene therapy space and I know everything. I can't wait till the page turns.
I so love your perspective. It is so beautiful. And I'm sitting here just feeling, personally invigorated to just help everybody hear what you have just shared, which is, for you back in 2013, it started with what would have been potentially as a mother, a scary diagnosis for her child, but it inspired you to look at things through a different lens and to really go deeper, and then to go on your own journey to share not only for your child, but for yourself, and then ultimately the ripple effect for humanity. But you just started to look at things differently. And, and that's really what I'm hearing. Like we have been told stories of limitation for a very long time as a human species, and yet more is possible. So if we're willing to just ask questions instead of could there be a cost? Well, could there be a gain? Does aging have to look a certain way? Well, what if it didn't? Are all diseases only meant to be diagnosed and managed and live on pill after pill and more pills for so long until you're out of here? Well, what if it didn't have to be that? What if instead of managing, we could correct, we could cure? And sometimes it can begin with as simple as a what if, and start to allow our brains to just dream and envision, because then it's kind of that anticipation of turning the page and
It's
starting
that
to see the beauty.
manifestation.
It's so beautiful. It really, exactly. It's so, so beautiful. So, I mean, Liz, I would love to sit here and just continue to share time with you for so long. There's so much I want to dive into. We didn't even get to today. Sorry, my dog is ready for, she's trying to get out the door right now. She's like,
If
I gotta
she
go.
barks, mine are gonna go.
I know. I'm like,
It's
just
like,
wait. You have to wait. But
yeah,
definitely, we're going to need to have you back for a deeper conversation later in this year. There's so much coming. We'll be excited to, I'll be with you at the rally. I'll be excited to see you at RAADfest as we have the 10-year, just a huge movement of continuing to let more and more people know what is possible with these therapies, with the future of medicine, with the future of health and very human potential. So thank you so much for everything today. I honor and I respect you immensely. So thank you for your contributions to humanity.
I appreciate you so much. And I hope that everyone listening is very excited about the future, no matter what your take is on it. The future is definitely for the flexible mind. So be flexible. And as you said, ask the what if. What if we do this?
And where can people most best, where would you like people to find out about you, about your work, or where you'd like to really kind of guide them in their own journey with all things gene therapies?
Well, you can find us at bioviva-science.com, and you can follow BioViva, or you can follow my work on LinkedIn, because I work with several companies. I work with regulators. I have a regulatory platform, and I am always posting the latest in gene therapy. Which is massively exciting. And so if you're really interested in that, what potential superpowers you might pick up, whether they are to defeat the ravages of time or see better or have more muscle mass or whatever it may be, then please follow me. You can also find me on other social media platforms as well.
Perfect. We'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes below. And I would hope that all of us leave this conversation today realizing that no matter what things have looked like in the past, we are at this beautiful tipping point in human existence where more and more is being revealed of our pure, limitless potential to live longer, to live healthier, more vital and vibrant lives. So thanks as always for tuning in. Go out and continue to be bold, stay curious, and allow your aliveness to flourish. Thank you for joining us on RAADcast, where science and soul ignite the future of radical life extension. Be sure to visit us over at radfest.com. There you can engage with like minds in the super longevity movement and find out about upcoming conferences and events. If you're inspired by today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to live bigger, bolder, and longer. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time on RAADcast.